matter how many years have passed, I can't stop thinking about that night. It was in the early 2000s when I was still a teenager. I was usually home alone for the majority of my life. My mom was never really around. The only memories I have of her is that she was some alcoholic bimbo who always got into fights with my dad. Since then, it's just been me and my dad living in this dingy apartment complex in the downtown region of my city. I personally didn't really like it, as there were a lot of homeless people roaming the streets at night. But since we lived on the top floor, the view of the city was pretty delightful, minus the crackheads. My dad was a pretty chill dude. I basically had free reign to do whatever I wanted since he left me home alone often. He was always out on a date or working overtime trying to make ends meet, so I would often invite my friends over for sleepovers. Besides that, I was often alone. I had already gotten myself into a good bit of trouble here and there, but I had my eyes and heart set on another little plaything entirely. A cute boy across the street who I just couldn't stop thinking about. I had him wrapped around my finger before he knew it. Cell phones weren't a super common thing at the time, but I had a telephone by my bed that was wired up to the receiver, and I talk on that thing for hours every day. Obviously, my favorite person to call was my boyfriend next door. We lived right across the street from each other, and on the same floors in our respective buildings, so by fate, our bedroom windows faced each other. At night, when everyone else was asleep, we stayed up and talked on the phone and looked at each other through the window. We thought it was the most romantic thing in the world. It was kind of like the equivalent to FaceTime, before that was even a concept. Of course, all the FaceTime just made me want to be with him even more. It wasn't enough to just see and hear him. I wanted him in my room. With a single parent in the house and no siblings, it didn't take long for me to find an opportunity in which I was home alone. Hey, I'm going on a date tonight, so you'll be by yourself until tomorrow morning.
Okay, whatever.
You're not excited for me or anything? You don't care at all that I'm getting back out there?
Ew, Dad. Don't talk to your daughter about that. Go make friends at a bar or whatever old men do.
Okay, I see. You're busy. I'll leave you alone.
Thank you. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyway, what was that you were saying about me?
That you look hot tonight.
How can you even tell from all the way over there?
That's just how beautiful you are. Do me a favor. If it rains tonight, try not to get wet, because you know sugar melts.
Oh, stop it.
Okay.
No, don't actually.
Then I won't.
You know what you should do?
What?
You should come over. I'm gonna be home alone. My dad's gonna be gone all night. He's going out on some date. We should have ourselves a little date.
Really? Are you sure?
I'm very sure. It's cold, you know. I need somebody to keep me warm tonight. That could be you if you came. Just think about it. We could snuggle all night long. Just you and me. Nobody else around.
That sounds good. Really good.
Uh-huh. So are you coming over?
I will. But I have to wait for my parents to go to sleep so I can sneak out.
How long is that gonna take?
Just a few more hours.
A few more hours? Well, then you better stay on the phone with me. Keep me company.
Don't worry, I got you. We chatted for the next 2 to 3 hours while gazing at each other through the window. That boy made me wait until 3 o'clock in the morning before he got the courage to walk across the street under the nose of his parents. But before he left his place, I watched him filling his backpack with clothes and whatnot. I waited patiently in anticipation as he was getting ready and away from the telephone momentarily, since the phone cord couldn't stretch that long, nor could the phone go on speaker. When he finally finished with his shenanigans and got back on the phone, I started egging him on.
It's 3 a.m. Aren't you gonna come over? I'm getting sleepy.
Babe, I'm sorry, but it might take another hour. I heard my dad in the living room.
Are you freaking shitting me?
Don't worry, he'll be back in his bedroom in no time. Are you still home alone?
Yes, my dad left 3 hours ago. Get over here already.
Alright. I'll be over in a sec. Just give me a few more minutes. All of a sudden, Jonathan's face turned completely pale, and his eyes lit up as if he had just seen a ghost. He was suddenly silent. He dropped the phone on the ground and put his hands up to his cheeks. In an expression of sheer horror, his mouth just about fell on the floor, hanging wide open, seemingly unable to move.
Jonathan? Jonathan, you're scaring me. What the hell are you looking at? Hello? Why are you looking at me like that?
He just wouldn't move. It was like he was frozen. I waved at him frantically and kept yelling at him over the phone, but I was talking to a statue.
Is something wrong? Hey, pick up the phone. Tell me what's going on. Are you okay?
No matter how much I prodded at him to answer me, he would just stand there shaking with his hands on his cheeks, shivering like a deranged crackhead that was about to OD. The only thing I could do was watch him slowly open his mouth, more and more and more, like he was something straight out of a cartoon flick. I began to helplessly plead with him by shouting at the top of my lungs.
Answer me! You're scaring me! Pick up the phone, you idiots! Come on, talk! Say something! Anything!
Finally, his arm moved, shaking as he picked up the phone and put it to his face. With his other arm, he pointed directly at me and said, You're not home alone. As soon as he said that, the lights in my bedroom flicked off. In an instant, everything was pitch black.
Oh God, please call the...
It's time for a family reunion.
This story is from the point of view of a 15-year-old boy. I had lived in this dingy 2-story house since the day I was born. It was quite the dread living in, as the heaters would malfunction during the winter, so we always made sure to have the fireplace on. But what made the house extra terrifying was how close it was to a prison. I've always wondered for a very long time why my parents chose to live in such a dangerous place. So last year I pestered my dad about moving out and looking for a better place to stay. But every time I try to persuade him, he would brush me off and tell me how this house had been passed down for generations and had always brought good fortune and prosperity to the family. As an only child, my parents felt it would be appropriate to hire a nanny, someone they could trust to take care of me, especially when they were out. So ever since I was 2, this old nanny was basically my roommate. Her presence made me feel safer and less frightened about the nearby prison. However, I still had the habit of looking out my window, checking out the massive wall topped with barbed wire flowing with electricity. I couldn't tell whether I was amazed or if some part of me was still afraid. I mean, who wouldn't be? If you knew your neighbors were some of the most diabolical people ever known to mankind clustered under one roof, wouldn't that make your heart beat a little faster? Knowing this prison had maximum security, I felt a sense of relief that prompted me to close the curtain and go to bed. Then, the following night, I came home late after playing games at my friend's house a few blocks away. And upon seeing our garage empty, I knew my parents weren't home yet. But it didn't matter. I knew Sabrina would be home to keep me company like she always did, even if we didn't have long conversations. However, when I entered the kitchen to grab something from the fridge, I read a note from Sabrina saying she had to go home to rectify an issue involving her close relatives. In her note, she promised that she'd try to come back as soon as possible, and so she reminded me to keep all the doors and windows locked and to hit the sack early. However, without supervision, I instead took the opportunity to play my phone. And when I checked the time, noticing it was 12, I decided to call it a night. Then, lying comfortably on the bed with my eyes heavy as sandbags, I heard loud footsteps emanating from downstairs. Half asleep, I jolted. I initially thought the nanny had returned with some heavy bag or something. I hastily ran down the stairs to greet her, even though she often told me not to. But as I descended to the first floor, a cold sensation wrapped around my skin. Then, gazing into the darkness before me, my throat went dry as I called out and said, "Sabrina, is that you?" I waited, but there was no answer, and so I called out to her once more. "Hey, Sabrina!" However, nothing but silence filled the air. "Sabrina, this isn't funny!" I yelled in exasperation. Then, seconds later, I heard one of her trash bins topple over, followed by a low, menacing chuckle. I stood still, and as soon as my body quivered, I had second thoughts about staying there, convinced that the best thing to do was just run upstairs and hide. However, I was too scared to move. Moments later, someone began to emerge from the darkness, and as the mysterious person came toward me, revealing their identity under the foyer's dim lights, I instantly recognized it wasn't Sabrina. Instead, it was a large man. He was lean and about 7 feet tall, wearing an orange t-shirt and pants. He had long, thinning hair and was disheveled like he hadn't showered in days. He didn't say a word, and that was the most terrifying thing. Not knowing what he planned to do made me panic. Then, all hell broke loose when the large man made direct eye contact with me. Triggered by the adrenaline, I began sprinting up the stairs, locked myself in a room, and hid under the bed. It never crossed my mind that I would come face to face with a stranger in my house, but I didn't know where else to go. As I bit my nails in sheer terror, I could hear the man running around my house, smashing into walls and tearing the place down. Sue, I heard the sounds of furniture breaking and glass shattering. And then, that's when all the lights around the house went out.
You can't hide from me!
I tried to crawl out from under the bed, desperately searching for a phone to call 911, but I couldn't see amidst the darkness. Still, I didn't give up. However, as time passed, I heard the commotion downstairs finally cease, followed by something more terrifying. That's when I hear footsteps coming up the stairs. They were slow but heavy. I knew if I didn't find my phone quickly, I may never see daylight again. So in my frantic attempt to find my phone, I suddenly hit what appeared to be a drawer. That's when everything went quiet. I didn't even want to breathe. I knew I had stupidly blown my cover. I then heard the creep opening the doors to the other rooms one by one. Mine was at the end of the hallway, so I knew he would eventually inspect this room as well. As soon as I grabbed my phone, I crawled underneath the bed once more, where I instantly contacted 911 and said,
Hello, this is an emergency. There's a giant stranger. Man. There's a giant man in my house. Please help.
I tried to keep my voice down as I described the man. At this point, I swear I could hear the man breaking more stuff from the 3 other rooms.
Hey, buddy, where are you? Come out wherever you are.
And that's when I heard my door creak open. I didn't move a muscle. I didn't even breathe. I held my hands across my mouth the entire time. And that's when the most terrifying thing happened. The man yanked me from underneath the bed and started slamming me onto it. I broke free from his grasp and was cornered by his enormous stature. That's when I slapped both of my hands on my cheeks and wailed in misery. I legitimately thought my life was going to be over, until I heard several police officers shouting at the man to get on the floor. Since I live next to a penitentiary, officers were always roaming close to my house, and it didn't take long until they barged through the front door and apprehended the man. Later on, I discovered that the creep was a convicted murderer who disguised himself as one of the security staff, allowing him to escape the prison. Consequently, when my parents found out about the incident, they finally decided it was time to move out and find a safer neighborhood to live in.
Story took place a few winters ago. When I was a young teenager, I was going through the phase where I really wasn't getting along with my family. I preferred spending time with my friends and always getting up to trouble. The holidays were definitely a tense time with all that going on. I couldn't stand seeing my parents, so of course I did everything I could to get out of going with them on some dragged out holiday vacation. Where are you going? You should be getting ready for the trip. I don't want to go on this stupid trip. I'll be back later. No, you won't! You're gonna stay and you're gonna pack up! I'll do it later. My friends are waiting on me. Well, if you're gonna choose those dirty lowlives over family, then we'll just leave without you. Then leave! I should have left you in the dumpster and not in your mother. Instead of getting ready for the big trip, I wanted to go to my friend's spot in the woods, where there was a cool old treehouse we'd all hang out at. After I got into it with my dad, I decided I wanted to stay out all night, which my friends were happy to hear after thinking I was going to be gone for the holidays. Well, fast forward another few hours and I was going belligerent by drinking from our so-called soda bottles in the safety of the treehouse. I don't recall much at all about what occurred during that night, except chatting with this attractive girl named Stephanie. But other than being able to barely comprehend my surroundings, I did, however, remember passing out and waking up right next to her and a couple other people on the floor of the treehouse. As soon as I opened my eyes, I could tell that I'd slept way later than I had anticipated. All of a sudden, I came to my senses and rushed home, hoping that I hadn't actually been left there home alone. Unfortunately, I knew by the lack of cars in the driveway that they really had left without me. That's when I came to the realization that I stupidly thought to never bring my key when I stormed off that day before. I checked the front door, back door, and even tried prying the side windows open, but everything was locked shut. I was cold, hungry, and hungover. I started freaking out and then used a rock to break through the kitchen window by the back door so I could reach around and unlock the door into the house. Once inside, I did what I could to clean up the glass, but there was no replacing the door window. Instead, I sealed it off with duct tape, just so there wouldn't be be too bad of a draft. A few minutes later, I called my mom to chew her out for leaving me behind. How could you leave me home alone? What kind of mother are you?
What kind of mother am I? What kind of son are you?
You probably had me with some random guy, and that's why you and Dad hate me.
You will not talk to me like that, young man.
Then I won't talk to you, you hoe! When that didn't go well, I tried calling up that girl I passed out with, but that was a bust too. She said she couldn't hang out until after she got back from the holidays with her family. That's when I came to the realization that I was going to be by myself for Christmas, completely alone, in a big house with no one around. By 10 p.m., I was an emotional wreck, so I crawled into bed and tried to get some sleep. It was barely 10 minutes later when I started hearing loud noises coming from the kitchen downstairs. I snuck out of bed and peeked down the stairs, and there I saw two men standing menacingly in my kitchen. And that's when I made the dumbest mistake of my life. I screamed at the top of my lungs out of sheer panic, and that's when the robbers immediately looked at me. I turned around and ran back to my room and locked the door. I panicked and called my mom. She made me wait until the last ring. I was just about to give up and call the cops, but she had just answered when the robbers broke down my door and charged into my room. Right away, one of them ran at me, picked me up, and tossed me on the bed like I was made of air, just to show me I stood no chance against them. Then, it was all just screaming. Hey kid, where's the money at? Yeah kid, come on. Where did they keep the jewelry, huh? Spit it out. I don't know. Please help me, Mommy. Look at him, calling for his mommy. You better dry up. We ain't even started hooking you up to car batteries yet. Hey, shut up. Look at this. He's on the phone with her right now. Isn't that nice?
What's going on? Who's there? Who are you, and what are you doing with my son?
Oh, don't worry, Mrs. Crybaby. Your wimpy little son is just fine, and he'll stay that way if you tell us the combination to your safe and where to find it.
What are you talking about? We don't have a safe.
That's baloney. Shut up. Forget the safe. Where's your money? Your jewels. If you don't tell us, then your son's gonna pay for it.
I'm telling you, we're not that rich. We don't have a safe or jewels or anything like that.
Please, believe her. Believe her. Shut up. You know what, kid? I say we ought to make him scream so his mommy can hear. Forget that hoe. She's dumb as rocks. We can't keep wasting time. We gotta make a move. Fast. Now. All right, wise guy. What should we do? I think she's bluffing. Let's ransom the kid. What? No, please. I'll do anything. Shut up. The next thing I knew, they put duct tape over my mouth and dragged me out of the room. I screamed and fought back against them, but they carried me down the stairs with one of them holding me by the legs and the other by the arms, and there was no way I could get out of their grip. And then, to my relief, I heard police sirens approaching my house until they were basically right outside. The two robbers then threw me down on the couch, and I wasn't able to see much of what happened, but I heard the robbers try to escape out the back door, only to be cut off by cops and arrested. For a while, I thought it was my mom who called the cops, but I didn't understand how they could have responded so quickly. As it turns out, it was the girl who called them, the girl that I met at the treehouse who gave me her number. She recently moved in just a few doors down from me and said when she heard some strange noises outside and went to investigate, she saw the two men snooping around my backyard and called the cops right away. Man, if things had gone differently, I might have wifed her.